Before taking office in 2024, Ishiba Shigeru, former Japanese prime minister, floated the idea of an Asian NATO, a collective defense pact that could echo Europe's security model. Beijing condemned the idea as a return to, quote, Cold War blocs. Washington labelled it as premature, and India distanced itself. And before her own rise, Takaichi Sanai pushed for a regional security coalition that included Taiwan, India and New Zealand as partners. What security concerns lie behind these calls? Is Asia ever likely to form a NATO-style alliance? And does the cautionary tale of SEATO provide clues for any alternative framework? Finally, why is such a concept of collective defence in Asia so controversial? And how would such a style of alliance differ from what is already taking shape in the region? As debate grows about coalition defence and security in Asia, did you know that a Cold War-era alliance once tried to bring collective security to Asia? SEATO, or Southeast Asian Treaty Organization, was created in 1954 during the Cold War and brought together 8 countries: the Philippines, Thailand, Pakistan, Australia, New Zealand, the United States, the United Kingdom and France. South Vietnam, Cambodia and Laos were classed as observer states, which, however, lay within the protected area. But noticeably, most Southeast Asian nations were not members, and while SEATO was established to protect the region from communist expansion, it became closely tied to the US justification for the Vietnam War, which eventually damaged SEATO's credibility. Compared to NATO, SEATO lacked any clear commitment, like NATO's Article 5, and members couldn't agree on a shared threat. Following the end of the Vietnam War and the emergence of ASEAN, which was based on dialogue rather than military action, SEATO was disbanded. Gimon, how would you characterize the failure of SEATO?
You know, at first it probably had a good intention, trying to replicate NATO, but as you mentioned in the beginning, there were lots of problems with it besides the consensus. Maybe one is the internal disagreement. For example, when India and Pakistan went to war, Pakistan wanted SEATO to intervene and it didn't work. So because it was more about an anti-communist focus than a India-Pakistan focus. So these kind of problems persisted, and I think the death knell of the program was the end of the Vietnam War.
Let's go now to today. The security environment is changing fast. Over the past 4 decades, China has engineered the biggest military buildup the world has seen outside of wartime, with no sign of it abating. The PLA Navy has surpassed the US Navy in hull number, with Chinese shipbuilding capable of building a British Royal Navy every 4 years. Most concerningly, there is evidence from satellite imagery that China's nuclear capabilities are accelerating without the transparency of other major powers like the US and Russia. Furthermore, with its military advantage, China has adopted an increasingly aggressive and expansionist posture in the East and South China Seas, the Taiwan Strait, as well as into the Western Pacific and Indian Ocean. Gemont, let me come to you now. So as we mentioned at the beginning, Ishiba and Takaichi, Ishiba is not a from the right wing of Japanese politics. But they both say that what we currently have is not enough. Why is that the case?
Because the democratic nations were under the false impression that doing business with China would tamper down its aggressive activity in the region, and it would become part of the commonwealth of countries that get along to go along and part of the free and open Indo-Pacific. It didn't work. Instead, China invested in its military continuously, 7% every year for many years. And compounding interest means that China now has a very huge capacity. As you mentioned, the number of ships is greater than the United States. It's growing its nuclear weapons. So it's a behemoth, and no individual country in the region can defend themselves against China.
Not even the United States? Is that the difference?
United States and China probably, equals in many different areas, their strengths and weaknesses, but the United States has obligations to countries in Asia, and the United States is an Indo-Pacific country, and so it's not going away. And so the time has come to reassess this idea.